We have a 1-minute countdown.
I'm just crossing things off my list.
All right, good morning. I hope you can hear me okay. I want to call this meeting of the HOA2 Board to order. The first item on the agenda is to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you'll stand for that, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Dan Leniger, president of the HOA2 Board. And before we do our introduction, I want to do a quick introduction of a new board member. Denise Lexell has volunteered to be on the board and submitted her name to the election process. And since she was the only person to submit her name, we do not need an election at this point in time. So I want to welcome Denise to your very first board meeting and wish you good luck during this next year and a half or so. The term of Denise's is through December 31, 2024. So her term is up the end of next year. I'll also just take a second before I go forget it. I want to thank the election committee. The election committee this year is new. Bill Einiger retired from chairing the election committee in the past. This year we have Paige, and I swear I can't say her last name. It's a hard name, so I'm going to say Paige S. If someone knows her better, they can correct me. Mike Berry and also Cash Striplin are that committee, and I want to thank them for their work on this special election. It was their first chance to get together, and they really did a great job. So thank you, Paige and Mike and Cash. Denise, do you want to say any words, or we'll just go through the introduction?
Nope.
Okay. So let's go around, start down on the end. Diane, why don't you introduce yourself?
Diane Flores, Recording Secretary.
Ray Kuhn, Assistant General Manager.
Denise Lexell, Director.
Matt Cambick, Assistant Treasurer.
You got him. Yeah. Mark Eckert, Vice President.
Chuck Hill, Secretary.
Sean Kreiderman, Director.
Campbell Cheney, Treasurer.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Walter is on vacation this week. Ray is filling in for him. I'm sure he'll do a great job. Walter's in Texas visiting his brand new grandson. So they're able to spend some time there, and I know they're missing the great weather here, but he'll be back next week. So good, safe travels for Walter and his family. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the January 25th board meeting. If I can hear a motion to do that.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, I got a motion from Sean, second from Campbell, to approve the minutes from the January 25th meeting. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, any discussion from the audience? With that, we'll do a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Vote carries. Thank you very much. I just spoke about the special election update, and so we're happy that that process is behind us. I'm amazed that we have a new board member within 1 month, so that's all good for the board. The next thing on the agenda, Ray, we're going to give you a few minutes to give us a bit of an operations update.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I'm going to start by introducing to you an initiative that the staff has in cooperation with our marketing department. You see it on the screen now. It is an acknowledgement that we as a staff understand that our board of directors, our committee members, our volunteers, you, our residents, are the most important people in this community. We have come up with a slogan, and that slogan is Saddlebrook 2, we appreciate you. You're going to start to see this and hear this throughout the community on our electronic advertisement boards, in our mailings, for the record, on checks that you receive at the restaurant. This is a cooperative effort, and we want to acknowledge that not only at Christmas time when we receive the bonus from you, are you important, but you are important to us throughout the year. So we appreciate that. Saddlebrook 2, we appreciate you. In terms of reporting, from accounting, we continue to work on our December financials. Reconciliation is slow. You know about some of the issues with TEI. I think Campbell is going to speak a bit to that later, so I'm not going to focus on that. Administratively, we have a new front desk receptionist. Her name is Adriana. Adele Allen has moved into a project management role in support of me and the rest of the operations team. And Annette Lyons has moved from the front desk to an administrative assistant. Fitness Center, Jeanette remains very active. Her classes are in the orders of 40 and 50 people for yoga. She is coming up with a new class. It's called Spin and Yin. So it's a combination of spin cycling and yoga. And that's going to be starting in March. So look for that. There is a new menu launch beginning at Mountain View Bar and Grill in March. Look for the new tailgater menu also to be featured in March. And for the record, we have a new chef at the Preserve. His name is Eric. On Wednesday, March 29th, at the Preserve, there will be a meet and greet opportunity for you. Some important dates to keep in mind from Lifestyle. There is a St. Patrick's Day festival, $35 per person on March 17th. I believe, let's see, those tickets are on sale. It doesn't say if that's at Mountain View or at the Preserve. But Heart of Rock and Roll tribute band to Huey Lewis is on February 25th at Desert View Performing Arts Center. Tickets are available now. And finally, Rhythm of the Dance, also here at the Desert View Performing Arts Center on February 28th. Tickets are selling out fast on that, so get them soon. The Mountain View Golf Course reset has begun. You may have seen some heavy equipment working behind the administration building. That is part of the irrigation main line and the new cart path that will have the golf carts out of the parking lot in front of the administration building and prevent any kind of safety issues that we have there. So I'm particularly looking forward to having that completed. We have lost our assistant superintendent for golf at the Mountain View golf course, but I saw an email this morning that Paul has already extended an offer, and that offer has been accepted for a new resource there. In terms of golf operations, obviously, you know the weather situation. We've lost a lot of rounds due to bad weather. So we need to make up some ground there, revenue-wise. There is a Cobra golf fitting on March 10th. There is the Mountain View Collegiate that will be played March 16th through the 19th at Mountain View. And there is something called a Sip and Swing scheduled for March 22nd at Mountain View. Human Resources, we have a resignation from our common area maintenance manager, and we're actively pursuing getting that person identified and hired, as we have, as you know, the level 5 activity to get stood up here pretty directly in the first quarter. So actively searching for that person. Operations and facilities, you may have seen some activity at the Preserve Bar. We had a water situation there that occurred inside of the bar. Fortunately, our facilities maintenance team was able to identify the leak, repair the leak, and put that back together in a very timely and sensitive manner. So kudos to the facilities maintenance team there. Patrol, Senior Safety Seminar Series has produced 2 large successful events, with 2 more planned in March and April. They are also awaiting delivery of their patrol vehicle. And that's what I have for you today.
Thank you, Ray. It is good news to hear that Paul has found a replacement for his assistant superintendent at Mountain View. I don't see Paul here. Where are you? Paul, do you want to say anything about that, or is that just, I've said what you would have said, huh? Okay, cool. Good, good. Well, I'm great. I'm happy for that, happy for you as well. Thank you for that hard work to get that taken care of. And if anyone is interested in managing the CAM group, there is a job opening, so if you want that, but that one seems to be a bit tougher to fill. Ray, thank you very much for the update. I appreciate it very much. Next on the agenda is a finance update, and also the second after that is an audit subcommittee charter review. So both of those are kind of Campbell's bailiwick, so I'll turn this over to Campbell.
Thanks, Dan. As Ray mentioned briefly, we have no financials for December or January to share with you. It's a serious issue, in my opinion, and it revolves around our new software system that we installed or tried to get live last July, got pushed back, and we forced to go live on November 1st of last year. The new software company, Total E Integrated, or TEI, as we call it, they run food, beverage, golf, fitness. The data that is generated from that gets put into our second system, which is Great Plains. That's our accounting software system. That was a legacy system we used under our old software system of North Star. The 2 packages are not compatible. They don't work together. Information that is inputted from the said food, beverage, golf, fitness, that data, when it gets put into Great Plains, it gets put into the wrong place. It doesn't work. It's a serious problem, as I said, and it doesn't look like over the last 4 months things are getting any better. So we really don't have the financials to show you on that. At first, I think our finance director, Terry, and our controller, David Castro, said that possibly they could start to work it through, because you could make things fit manually, but we're talking 1,000 or so different line items. So very difficult once the data gets downloaded into our secondary system, Great Plains, to go hunt and find where the mistakes are. So we do have the November financials, but nothing ever since that. So December, we have to have an audit done by 180 days after the end of the year, so it's not till June, but we hope to get the December numbers at least in some kind of form to everybody end of the week, first part of next week. Very primary, very, not final figures, but at least something. So that's kind of where we are with that. So we have questions or move on? With that bad news, I'm going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is our audit subcommittee charter. Joe, you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. Following our 2021 financial audit from our outside auditors, they recommended that we have regular reviews of our internal control and audit functions, doing it internally. As a result of that recommendation, an advisory audit subcommittee of the Finance Committee was formed in late 2022. Next slide, please. What are the benefits of an audit subcommittee? Really, we don't have an internal audit function at Saddlebrook. Most large companies have internal auditors that go review the accounting systems and the finance systems to make sure the controls are being followed and that there's not mistakes being made. We don't have that here. So this subcommittee kind of fits into that role in an advisory standpoint. We need the financial controls. We need kind of that double check of what our finance and accounting systems are doing, and this kind of fits that role. It also kind of reduces the possible exceptions in our annual audit by flagging issues early and mistakes as well. So next slide, please. This charter that we're voting on today has been drafted and was approved by the Finance Committee on February 16th of 2023 at the last meeting last week. Next slide. The purpose of the committee is to inspect the integrity of financial statements and underlying accounting, one of them. Inspect our auditing firm's qualifications, a second one. We make sure we have the right auditors for our audit. Third, inspecting the internal accounting controls as they relate to financial reporting. And next slide. The duties are going to regularly review the integrity of internal, external financial reporting controls, review with external audit firm problems that may be accounting in our audit, upcoming and future audits, review account reconciliations and make sure our cash management is properly accounted for, and then report findings to the Finance Committee and the Treasurer. And with that, I'll make a motion at the recommendation of our outside auditor. This subcommittee of the Finance Committee was formed and will perform regular and needed inspections of our internal finance management to test its internal control effectiveness, as well as review our annual outside audit procedures and results. So I move that we approve the audit subcommittee charter. Do I hear a second?
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to approve the audit subcommittee charter by Campbell, seconded by, I think, Chuck. Okay, Chuck. So, you all have seen the presentation. Do you have any conversation? Do you have any discussion relative to this new charter? The only thing I'll say is I think it's really good work by the Finance Committee. It's been going on for a couple of years now that this has been this issue has been talked about. So it's good to have an actual charter now, and they'll formulate a committee, a subcommittee to do the work, which is really what is at the heart of this. So I thank the Finance Committee very much for all the work that went into this to get to this point of being able to actually formalize this. So if there's no comments from the board, is there any comments on this motion from the audience? All right. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes carry. Thank you very much, Campbell, for presenting that. All right, Finance Committee, you can go to work. Okay, next on the agenda is the review of unanimous written consents, and I've talked about this before. There are occasions where the board make decisions as a board on certain topics between meetings, between open meetings. And to To do that, you have a unanimous written consent, which means the motion was put on a piece of paper and all of us have signed that to make that effective. Since our last meeting on January 25th of this year, we had 3 unanimous consents. One was to elect Mark Eckert as vice president. When the vacancy occurred, we had a vacancy then for vice president. So we wanted to act on that right away, so we elected Mark as vice president. We also approved Ray Adams as chair of the Rules and Regs Committee. Thank you, Ray, for volunteering to do that. So we approved that right away as soon as Ray said he was willing. And we also approved the board goals for 2023. On the agenda, at pretty much the end of the meeting, I'm going to go through those board goals for everyone to see. We attached them to the agenda, so you were able, hopefully, to read them. We wanted to approve them quickly, though, because we wanted our committees to have those board goals when they work on their goals for 2023. So we wanted to get that kind of out of the way quickly, and we did. So those 3 items have been approved. They are online. You can read about them. But now I want to ask if there's any board members' motions for any other items that were not on the agenda, which may in fact be like members of committees and things of that sort. So I'll open the discussion up to other board members at this point.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve John Sahokian and the Rules and Regulation Committee.
All right, thanks, Chuck. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Campbell did the second. So to approve John, motion on the table to approve John as a member of the Rules and Regs Committee. Is there any discussion from the board? I've seen John's resume. He's very impressive. I haven't met him, but I'm sure he's going to do a good job. Is there any comments from the audience? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion carries for John. Is there any other motions?
Yeah, I've got one more for the, there are some very minor changes to the Rules and Reg Committee charter, basically changing the executive director to general manager. I'd like a motion to approve the newly revised charter for the Rules and Regulation Committee.
I'll second that.
All right, Sean has second, Chuck first, and Sean has second. Any comments? The only thing I'll say is they are minor. These are online charters. You can read them. It's just a clarification issue to make sure we're legal in the people that are in part of our staff and their titles at this point in time. Is there any comments from the audience? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Chuck.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Bruce Shapey as a member of the ALC. He's been doing a lot of work, and he's a great guy, and we want him on the committee.
Cool, that's good. Any second?
Second.
Campbell seconds. Any discussion about Bruce? I'll validate what Sean just said. Bruce, if you're here, thank you very much for volunteering. You're a great addition to the ALC, so thanks for doing that. Hearing no more discussion, anybody from the audience have a comment about Bruce? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. All opposed? Thank you, Bruce. Any other motions?
Yeah, this is Mark. I'd like to make a motion to add Eileen Depka in the Fitness Wellness Committee. So the committee has recommended her, and I'd support that.
Can you repeat her? I don't know if everybody heard.
Oh, as far as adding Eileen Depka to the Fitness Wellness Committee.
Eileen,
Sorry.
right?
Yeah.
Eileen Depka. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Got it. Matt seconds. Any discussion on this? Any discussion from the audience about the motion to add Eileen Depka to the Fitness, Wellness, and Recreation Committee? Nope. Thank you again, Eileen, for volunteering. We really appreciate people stepping forward and volunteering for these committees. They all need help, so thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for bringing that up. Any other motions? Does anybody in the audience want to volunteer on the spot for a committee? Or vote you right in? Okay. Thank you. Very good. Thanks. Okay. The next item on the agenda is to approve a change order for the Mountain View Golf Course construction project and also approve a Golf Improvement Fund, GIF fund recommendation from the Golf Committee. So I'll turn it over to Mark for that.
Yeah, I've wanted to go through a little review, and so I see we've got the first one up there. I'm the one that's been kind of the liaison for the board with regard to the golf construction and also with regard to the golf committee, so these are kind of two things that I'm familiar with. From a GIF standpoint, I just wanted to give everybody kind of an update of where we are. If you recall, the GIF was created a year or two ago basically to fund specialty items for golf that maybe wouldn't be supported necessarily by normal funds to improve the experience of golf. And so the board voted this year to basically kind of stop that at the end of this year and not go forward with it because it really kind of made it confusing from a budgeting standpoint. But we have the money that's been contributed to it for the last couple of years. And the fitness, the way it works is the committee makes recommendations based on their input from golfers as to things they'd like to see that aren't necessarily being done from official funds. And then, so this is a list of the things so far. As you can see, we're a little bit behind again with the financials. As of November 1st, we had about $184,000 in the fund. We have to estimate, of course, how much gets contributed in November and December. Obviously, the play was a little slow. We haven't gotten the final reports yet, but we're estimating that when we get the December reports, we're going to have something in the area of 190, maybe a little more in the fund. And the items that have been approved so far, we have this was a recommendation from the golf committee and actually from Paul to add artificial turf to the Mountain View driving range, a strip of artificial turf. It was agreed that it was a good thing to do. It was funded, and actually we have the purchase order issued, and that's the amount of money for it. As we mentioned, the cart path to go from number 9 to number 10 that goes behind the building, the Mountain View building, that was previously approved at a cost of $58,000, so the GIF is paying for that. There were 2 pound fountains that were recommended by Paul and supported by the board. These not only improve the quality of the water in the 2 ponds, but also do add some visual effect to it to make it look nicer, and we thought that was a good use of the funds. Another thing that was added or approved, the golf committee had recommended expanding a bunker. For those of you that golf on Mountain View, the par 3 number 4 can be kind of a challenging hole because there's a steep hill on the right side, and the recommendation was to extend the sand trap there to kind of defend against the ball running all the way down into the street, which it sometimes does, and that was approved. A note on that, actually, we've been told by our project manager and consultant, Mike Gogol, that we think that actually money may not have to be spent. The contractor feels he might be able to go ahead and do that just as the project is funded today. We don't have a confirmation of that yet. I just sent an email looking for that confirmation. So we may end up having $10,000 more that we'll be able to spend. That right now we have to say, though, that it's still going to be a cost of $10,000, even though we don't have a change order yet submitted by the contractor for that, and maybe we won't. And then the last thing, the original request from the golf committee on the GIF funding was to basically rebuild the green on number 15 at Mountain View, which has got some very steep hills, makes it very difficult to have valid spots to put the pins in. And the original estimate for that, including the design, was close to $100,000, and the GIF funds simply didn't have enough funding for that. And so that was voted down originally and was not listed. After further discussions with the contractor and with Mike Ogle, our designer, we find that there is an option that is much more palatable. They can re-slope that green by removing some of the material and then putting the grass back on. It's not rebuilding the whole green, and the cost went down for that pretty substantially to only $22,000. And so we have a change order proposal for that already, and that's the other item from a GIF standpoint. So before I go to the next one, I guess what it would be appropriate to go ahead, I'd move that the board formally approve the change order for leveling the green for the $22,300 quote that we have.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
I second it.
Matt has seconded. The motion on the table, as I understand it, is to approve the GIF recommendation from the Golf Committee to spend $22,300 to level the number 15 green at Mountain View. The other items that you see on the slide have already been approved. So those were approved, I think, in the January 25th meeting. So
Right.
This is the addition of the number 15 green. Is that correct?
That is correct. And as you can see, it does leave us still with an estimate of about $56,000, possibly $66,000 if that number 4 doesn't end up having to be spent, for other recommendations by the Golf Committee that the board would consider for other golf improvements to use up the balance of those funds. We have no other recommendations at this time yet from the committee.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion from the board on this topic? Nobody else has got a, hard to believe, Matt, you don't have something to say about this?
Oh, there he goes.
I fully support the action. The real reason why this is important is it's the most difficult green on the course to pin because of the slope. This will make life much easier, and Paul will get yelled at a lot less.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Any comments from the audience on this? Yeah, come on down. There's a microphone right here.
Ron Bechke, Unit 42. I'm blanking as to what the Golf Improvement Fund, where the funds came from, and then maybe an explanation of it
Okay.
in more detail about why it's going away.
Over the last, to answer that quickly, over the last few years, there has been money set aside from people paying to play golf, whether you were an annual punch card holder or a resident daily fee person. So there was money set aside for golf improvements. It really wasn't very well defined, and the board last year decided that that money really was revenue. It was intended to be revenue. It got set aside for special projects, if you will, and the board last year decided to end that and use that money as operational revenue. So this is what's left over, and it was a lot of money, and the Golf Committee and the charter originally for the GIF program was all about the Golf Committee using that money for projects that were outside the operational or the reserve fund, capital fund that the HOA has. So it really wasn't money contributed by homeowners as much it was money contributed by golfers. This is the end result of what's going on, spending that money. So does that answer your question, Ron? Yes. Okay, cool. Good question. Thank you. Anybody else have a comment? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of this motion, say aye. 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 All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mark. Now you have one more.
Yeah, if we could get the next. So as I mentioned, I'm also the person that's kind of the liaison for the Mountain View construction project with the contractor and the designer. So I just wanted to give a quick update on that also. Basically, if you've been driving around at all Mountain View, you're probably seeing a lot of activity going on right now already. The contractor is trying to get as much pre-work done as he can. The construction officially starts May 15th when the course gets shut down, but there is work that doesn't affect golf presently that can be done ahead of time, and it helps him manage his staff and is more efficient, obviously. And ultimately, the goal is to finish the construction before September 15th if it can be done, and he certainly wants to do that. So the more we can get done ahead of time, the better. The things that are being done right now is there is what we'd call the turf nursery. It's at the adjacent to the practice area at Mountain View at the back, in that second practice area. That's been cleared, and a lot of the construction material is now being stored there. There's a lot of pipe, PVC pipe for the irrigation there. There's a lot of sand that's going to be put there. So this is kind of a defined storage area for the construction project, and then it will be a permanent area for like a nursery after everything's all done for them to be able to grow plants and things. The cart path construction we mentioned again is already occurring between the 9th green, and it goes up behind the hill and ends up by the putting green, practice putting green. That again is work that can be started now. It's been started, it's active. If you look back there, you'll see a lot of work going on. That is required for the main irrigation pipe for the new irrigation system. And again, this was voted on to go ahead and add this cart path there so people don't have to drive through the parking lot anymore, which we've been doing for about 20 years. So, and that actually is funded by the GIF funding. So it's actually funded outside the contract that we have as far as the funding that we created for the golf course renovation. And there's some other work. There's additional parking as part of that $58,000. It's not just for the cart path. It's also for some additional parking that's going to be created over by the putting green at Mountain View also, because we don't have enough really parking for carts. So it's a little more extensive than just the path itself. As you can probably see if you've been driving around, they're starting to do a lot of the boring. There's about 8 or 9 roads where we have to bring pipes underneath the roads to connect all the irrigation and communication systems and everything. They are now doing that now. Again, it doesn't affect golf. All those pipes are going to be put in, and then the holes will be refilled and marked. And so on May 15th, when the construction actually starts, they'll, open those all up and start, of course, installing things and connecting the pipes and completing the irrigation system. So that work's going on right now. The other thing which I wanted to mention is we have one change order that we want to consider and vote on today with regard to the sand. To give you an idea, because I was involved in the contract, there are 3 sections in the contract we have with regard to possible escalation. One of them has got to do with fuel, and the way the contract's written right now, there's only an escalation for fuel if the price of fuel gets 10% above $5.19 a gallon. As you recall, this contract was written right at the time when we had the worst cost for fuel. We're not really perceiving at this point that any escalation for fuel is ever going to occur. Obviously it could, but we don't think that's going to happen. The second part of it is the irrigation piping and irrigation supplies. All of the irrigation parts and pieces are already purchased. The price is locked in. Almost all of the irrigation piping has been purchased already. And so we don't feel like there's very much chance we're going to have any price escalation remaining on that second section of the possible escalation. And then the third part was what we'd call, I guess, hardscape, and sand obviously falls into that. The sand has been the one challenge that we've had. The sand that was originally included, we originally were thinking we couldn't even get it. The price had gone up quite a bit. Fortunately, they've been able to find the source of the sand. It's the same sand that HOA 1 uses. It's a West Coast sand. Unfortunately, the pricing has gone up substantially on golf course sand. There's a gigantic demand for it. A lot of courses being built around the country right now. And so The contractor has given us information that he does need to get a change order for that. We do have in our planned financing for the course a fair amount of money for change orders already allowed for. You'll see in the bottom line there, $267,000 allowance for cost escalations. So we are well within the amount of money that we've got, that we planned for, knowing that there might be some cost problems. There may be some cost issues that come up when they actually start digging, but I think this sand problem is probably, hopefully, the last thing that's going to come up with regard to any escalation with regard to parts. I don't think there's any feeling that we're going to have a stone pricing problem with the stone. So anyway, that's kind of a quick overview of kind of where we are with the construction project and the costs. And I guess at this point, what I'd like to do is make a motion for the board to approve the change order that's been proposed by the contractor for $42,438 so that we can get the sand that we need for the course, and he can go ahead and purchase it and get it supplied and stored for us.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
I second it.
Matt seconds. So the motion on the table is to approve, my slide went away. Joey, can you go backwards one?
He's working it.
Or wait a minute, I got it. Campbell's giving it to me. $42,438 as a change order for the purchase of bunker sand due to inflation. So that's on the table. That's the motion, correct? Yes. Okay, thank you. Is there any conversation from the board? Anybody want to complain or be happy or anything? I will echo Mark's comments that I think there was some pessimism going into this contract, which was signed in July of last year, that inflation may be a bit of a pill. And it looks like the contractor and the architect, and certainly Paul as well, have done a great job of controlling that. So I think we're in starting this project in a real good spot. So thank you, Mark, for that update, because that really is, I think, good news for all homeowners. Any comments from the audience? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mark, for that update. That was all good stuff. Okay, we're moving right along. Matt Cambick is going to give us an update on level 4 and level 5 common area maintenance. And this is a bit of a holdover from our last meeting on January 25th to do a little clarification and cleanup on motions that were approved last meeting. So Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Dan. Before I get into my presentation, I do have some thank yous. Patience. New board members are ignorant about a great many things. And you could have filled a thimble what I knew about the common area maintenance policy when I became a member of the board. So I've been drinking from the fire hose. I had to start with my board members who were on the board last year, who were part of all the efforts of last year's board effort to study this problem set, and who had the commitment and conviction to put resources into the budget so we can be having this conversation today. The second thank you is for Walter, Ray, and at the time Anthony Griego, who sat down with me and gave me an hour or two of their time because of my ignorance. They had a lot of work to do to show me the problem set from their side. So I got the board's input, I got the staff's inputs, and that wasn't enough because we got to January's meeting and residents wanted to help make Matt smart. And Eileen is sitting over here, and Eileen Depka, who sat on the task force to produce the common area policy that was approved by the board back in May of 2021, gave me about 90 minutes. And the best tutorial I had on the common area maintenance policy and forced me to go back to Walter so we could read it together. So Walter and I were 100% in agreement that we were reading it the same way. In the middle of all that, the members of the board had to go through 5 or 6 versions of what you're going to see today. So this has been vetted with everybody. The smartest people I know on this subject have provided input. So I'm going to discuss the actions the board took back in January regarding level 4 and level 5 common area maintenance. And then I'm going to present how we've evolved to the common area maintenance transition plan. Next slide, Joey. A little closer to the mic. Okay. It's hard for me to read my notes. The common area maintenance policy was approved by the Board of Directors on 19 May 2021. The policy clearly states the maintenance standards for all common area levels, of which there are 6. In 2022, the board spent a great deal of effort trying to identify the gap that existed between the ongoing level 4 maintenance that the common area maintenance team was executing and their stated goal of executing a level 5 area maintenance program. Courses of action were considered by the board, and a commitment was made to fund level 5 maintenance in 2023. So let's review the strategy the board settled on. After consultation and, what's the right word I'm looking for? Back and forth with Walter Ray and the CAM team leader, the board is implementing the following strategy. We're going to add personnel to the CAM team. We're going to fund the purchase of the necessary equipment to conduct the level 5 maintenance. The board goal that was presented to staff was we would like to see a 1-year cycle for all level 4 and level 5 maintenance for the entire community. The CAM team will pursue that goal that was established by the board. Our transition plan has clearly identified responsibilities for we, the board, our general manager, and the common area maintenance team leader. We will establish a transition period that will afford the staff time to hire, train, and gain operational experience that will allow the CAM team to meet the annual maintenance goal. Next slide, Joey. This slide depicts the definition of the level 4 area right out of the policy. Take a second and read it. Next slide, Joey. There are 4 different paragraphs defining the level 5 areas. You'd think this would be simple. It isn't. The first 2 paragraphs are listed on this slide, and the second 2 will be on the next 2. Please take a minute to read the slide. It's not my intent to make you as smart as Eileen. It is my intent to let you know that all of this is inside of our maintenance policy, and you can find that. The next slide, Joey. These are the second 2 definitions that define level 5 areas. Doug, wave at me when you're done. Thank you. Next slide, please. And this is the definition for level 6. Thank you. Next slide. Yeah, you're really going to love this one. This is the eye test. This is here for informational purposes. This is the southern end of Saddlebrook 2. There's a map that exists for the southern end and for the northern end. This is the first one. Go ahead, Joey. And this is the second. These maps are available If you too would like to study level 4, level 5, level 6 maintenance areas in our community, just have to go to the admin office and you can study the maps. They're clearly identified by different colors.
Matt, can I assume that if this is not clear to me, it's my eyes that are a problem?
No, you wanted the slide, I put it in
I'm just
there.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
It's way beyond my ability to discern, but the charts that Walter and Ray have are huge, and they keep it current based on the ongoing changes they've experienced here in the community. Go ahead and give me the next slide, Joey. So during the January board meeting, the board approved these actions. We approved the purchase of a Caterpillar mini track loader with forestry mulcher. Now this is a machine that's capable of doing a lot of good work in chewing up stuff that we don't want in level area 5. There's going to be an art to employing this piece of equipment. And that's part of why we're going to have a transition plan, so our common area maintenance team can figure out how to use this thing correctly and to help them, because one of the board commitments has been we need more mechanization in our maintenance of our level 4 and level 5 areas, and the staff has agreed with that. The second thing we did was approve the purchase of the additional equipment to support brush clearing and pruning operations. There's going to be some handwork that has to be done around the cacti and other desert stuff that we want to preserve in both levels 4 and 5. We approved the fact that it is the board's ultimate goal that the CAM team will have the sole responsibility for providing maintenance in level 4 and level 5. And this speaks directly to paragraphs 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4 in our policy, which currently allow residents to apply to the common area maintenance team to do maintenance in level 5 behind their property. And if they receive approval, they can pay and do that with approved contractors. The ultimate objective of this program is to eliminate that, because we're doing such a great job with our own common area maintenance team. And the board established the goal of achieving a 1-year rotation cycle. We think that's reasonable, and we think that falls within the scope of the resources that we're providing, and that's the challenge we're presenting to the staff, is to make that a reality. Next slide, Joey. So when I finish my presentation, I will be offering motions for board consideration and approval of these 2 actions that augment the decisions we made last month. The first is the authorization of 2 additional personnel, and the second is the approval of the transition plan to support this initiative. Next slide, Joey. The Common Area Maintenance Policy Transition Plan consists of the following. The transition period start date will be 25 January. That was last month's board meeting. We approved those first 4 actions. The transition period will end at some time in the future, to be determined at a later date. We just don't know how long it's going to take the common area maintenance team to get to the place to meet the goals that we've established. In the interim, homeowners will continue to have access to the provisions listed in paragraph 5.2 of the CAM policy throughout the entire transition period until it's terminated. The general manager, Walter, is responsible for advising the board when the CAM team is properly resourced, trained, and operationally capable of meeting the board's goals related to the level 5 maintenance. At that time, the board can vote to end the transition period, and the CAM policy will be revised to reflect the change in homeowner options related to level 5 areas. The ultimate outcome, I'm going to pound the table, the ultimate outcome is that our common area maintenance team will perform all annual level 4 and level 5 maintenance requirements in accordance with the standards established in our May 2021 policy. When the transition plan is terminated, then paragraphs 5.2, 5.3, and 5.4 will only be available for level 6 maintenance efforts. Next slide. Standards will not change. There will be absolutely no changes to the standards that are listed in our policy. Next slide. That says questions, but at this point in time, sir, I'll make my motion so we can engage in discussion.
Thank you, Matt. Probably the best thing to do is just go ahead and make the motions at this point in time, because that opens up the opportunity to talk about certainly the motions.
Yes, sir. I want to reference the final 2023 budget, page 20, common area maintenance budget line, where the 2022 board approved a level 5 4-man maintenance crew for a total cost of $187,751. After significant discussions with Walter and his team, the board members, and the staff agreed to a strategy that involved a move to a more mechanized effort and a reduction from a level 5 maintenance crew of 4 to 2. As such, I move that we approve adding 2 new personnel to the common area maintenance team to support the level 5 maintenance mission we tasked the CAM with at the 25 January board meeting.
Is there a second? Okay. Campbell, I guess, was the first. Second. Again, thank you, Matt. The preamble, well, let me just go back. The motion on the table is to hire 2 additional CAM, common area maintenance employees, to support improving our current status of level 5 maintenance. And I think Matt did a great job of trying to give that background as to what that should look like and what that will be going forward. So the addition of 2 people is required. And I also appreciate the fact that we are trying to drive towards mechanization as opposed to making this nothing but a lot of hard work by individual employees to clean all this up. So that's a big part. So having said all that, is there any other discussion by the board? Wow. Okey doke. Is there any comments from homeowners? Well, oh, wait a minute. Hang on. There's someone coming up. All right, Elaine.
I'm Eileen
Elaine?
Depka,
Eileen,
Unit 27,
sorry.
Lot 47. Matt, I just want to thank you for all of the work you've done, and for the kind words, by the way. Your interest in the common area is greatly appreciated. The task force ended their work 2 years ago now, and the policy was first approved in January of last year, and then some changes were made. But this is the first really great step forward that we see. At the time that the task force provided the information to the board, we had requested something similar to a committee that would be like the golf course committee, where you the committee itself would do things like support the board, the community, and the staff in implementation of the policy and any future changes that might take place. I'm not sure if this is the time to suggest it or not, but I'd like to at least suggest that the board look at considering that type of committee so that in a situation, you're not out there on your own. There are people who are well-versed, as well as, obviously, the group that Walter leads, and they've done phenomenal work. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Eileen. That comment, I'm sure, will be taken to heart by Matt, certainly. So thank you. Any other comments?
Hi, I'm Art Kopsak, Unit 29, Lot 26. As Eileen, I was on the Common Area Task Force. And I have one's a question, well, actually 2 questions. Whatever happened to the vent track that's supposed to be used for Area 4, the level 4, which can also be used partially in level 5? That thing seems to have disappeared. So that's the first question. The second question is, whatever happened to the $5,000 that was allocated for landscape design on the Area 1, on the Level 1, particularly along Mountain View Boulevard, adjacent to Unit 29?
All right, thank you, Mark. Good questions. I know where the Ventrac is. I can't tell you how often it gets used, but I think, Ray, do you have a comment here that you could make to either of those questions? If not, we can get back to you on that. The Ventrac is here. There's no question that it does get used throughout the year, but Ray, do you have a comment?
Only that it is, in fact, still being used. To what extent, I don't really know, and we'll look into that for you, but it is used currently in Level 4.
I think, I know I was involved a little bit with this, with Don, and the Ventrac is being used. I think the challenge was that the goal, I think certainly now, is for the Ventrac to be used for Level 4. And the issue we had was Level 4 needs to be cleared, so, a Ventrac is kind of like a gigantic lawnmower. And the goal, I think, is to be able to just run the thing down the back of the walls and just mow. And the problem is that before you do that, you got to remove all the big rocks and things out of the way, which is going to be a one-time amount of work. That's a manual amount of work. And I think that's probably one of the plans to be done with this program that we're funding now. But it was never really done in the past. And so if you've had people in the back of your walls doing Level 4, you probably saw a lot of guys with weed whackers. And that obviously is not a mechanized way of doing it, and I think that's one of the changes that we're talking about here, is to go much more mechanized. But it's going to require to clear it so we can use a Ventrac where maybe we need to, so.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that answers the question on the Ventrac. The other question you had about Level 1 and money set aside, I can't answer it, but I think if you don't mind, Matt, would you write that down? And
Yeah, I wrote it down, but it was Mark, right? Art. My follow-up question is, when was the $5,000 set aside for this activity? 21? Thank you. I'll find the guilty.
we'll look into it. We can't answer on the spot, but thanks for the question. Is there any other comments relative to the motion on the table? Come on up.
My name is Cheryl Monroe, and we live in Unit 23. We're snowbirds, and so I think maybe we're not quite up as much on a lot of what's been happening as... Sure, sorry about that. Anyway, I guess we're a little unclear about the definition of what's going to happen with Level 5. We have a Level 5 behind our home. We're up a little bit higher than the neighbor across the Level 5. And the whole area is just a rat's nest. And there's also some weedy trees that have grown so big they're blocking our view. And I'm wondering, is this supposed to handle all of that? And what are you going to do? Are you going to clean it all up? Get rid of those weedy trees? I mean, we're just a little uninformed.
Ma'am?
Yes.
As soon as that fella right there hires himself a common area maintenance team leader, the goal is to clean that up in accordance with the published standards.
And that's what I guess my question is, what is the published standard? I mean, that's paragraph 5.2 is what you're talking about?
No, ma'am. There are standards. Isn't this great? You've done good. There are standards for all 6 levels that are clearly articulated.
Right. I understand that.
Okay. The task this board has given to our staff is your Level 5 area is supposed to meet the standards in here. Okay?
Right.
And so I'm going to let you know the first time I see it after they do it.
So, Matt, can she find these standards online? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're in the common area maintenance policy, but the
Okay.
problem is until you see it, nobody can sit here and tell you how the tree's going to get trimmed, what trees are going to be gone, what stuff's going to be gone. We want to protect our natural cacti, those kinds of things. But until we get this team manned, resourced, trained, I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to give you a picture of what that's really going to look like. It's just going to look a lot better than it does today.
Well, it won't be hard to make it look better than it does today.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, behind, on the other side facing our front, there's a ridge which used to look like a rat's nest, and it had been cleaned up, and it looks absolutely fantastic right now. There's only quality plants there, and it's a lot less dense than it was before. And I guess I'm wondering, I guess we just want to get a sense for what the goal is. Is it supposed to look like that?
It's supposed to look a lot better than 25 years of overgrowth. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but it's what I described as the ridge across the road. Is that what that you've already done?
It's hard to actually know exactly what your view is. So the one thing I'll tell you is you can read about it, but let me be clear, and this is really an important, we can't guarantee views. What you may have had days ago, just like all of us when our homes were new, is probably different than today. So there's no guarantee that we're going to improve your view with this. It may occur, but it just, that's just not a guarantee.
Yeah, I guess our interest is we had submitted a request, I guess under the prior, that's part of the prior option, I guess, where
Current
we could explain,
option,
we
yes.
sent in pictures.
Yep.
And it wasn't to do anything about the rat's nests that are in there, but mostly about these weedy trees that have grown up. But we've not heard anything back, and this was last May. So I guess that's why, we're here with the interest.
Ray will take that to try to make sure he gets back with you, because if you've made a request, you should have heard some kind of an answer.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, your name, I got the lot number, Unit 23, is that correct?
Unit 23,
And your name, please?
Cheryl Monroe.
Cheryl?
Cheryl and Rich
Give me the
Monroe.
lot number?
I don't know my
Fair enough, that's fine.
my number.
We'll
I
find
can
it.
look it up and give
We'll find
That's
you.
fine. Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Yes.
First, I want to thank everybody that's trying to solve a big problem in Saddlebrook, and I know you're making a great effort, but can you tell me what is the? What's your name? Oh, I'm sorry. Michael Buckley, Lot 36, Unit 36, Lot 36. And can you tell me what is the equipment you're going to get besides the big Caterpillar product that's going to mulch everything up, apparently, to help assist with brushing and all that?
I cannot.
The reason I say that is I've said at a previous board meeting that common area maintenance is a very inefficient operation because they drive these little carts that have 3-by-3 foot tubs that they put all their product in, and with 1 foot high walls. So obviously they can't put much product in it. This operation needs to act more like the landscapers around Saddlebrook. We need to have bigger trailers that are pulling and can be filled up. They can actually go onto the cart paths, pulled by even those machines that have a 3-foot trailer. And then you're not driving out 30 minutes and 30 minutes back and carrying about 1 cubic foot of product, 1 cubic yard of product. We have to aggressively think that this is not a small operation, this is a huge operation. This is like division warfare. And you as a Major General, I know what you know about division warfare, so you have to approach it from that aspect that we can't continue with this small equipment, it has to be upsized. Otherwise, this whole project is going to fail. And
Thanks.
just one last thing.
Okay.
You're not going to be able to do it in time because the growing season is basically from March until October, and that's the time that everything needs to be done. But really, you're not going to be able to come to people's satisfaction when their wall in August is completely covered with growth, and they'll say, well, we'll be there in October. So you have to think of that aspect as well.
Okay.
That-
Thank you. Thanks for those comments. I'll kind of remind everybody, and Eileen, you're probably going to touch on this, but the intent of this is to comment on the motion. So just want to kind of remind everybody that. So go ahead, Eileen.
Eileen Depka again. I just wanted to point out where the policy is and help that lady out. I know you can't describe exactly what it's going to look like when it's done, but the policy does have an excellent description. So not only within the policy, but if you take a look on the website, it can be easily found under policy, common area maintenance policy. Take a look at section 5 and also take a look at the appendices for sections 4 and 5. Clearly describes every piece of work that should be done by the common area policy, and I think that will be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope you got that.
See why she's my advisor?
Yeah. Thank you, Eileen, very much. Is there any other comments on the motion? Again, the motion is to hire 2 people to add to the common area maintenance group. Is there any other motion or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Matt, you did a great job.
I'm not done, sir.
Whoa.
I'm sorry. You gave me
Got one more motion. Sorry.
Sir, the transition plan consists of board responsibilities, general manager responsibilities, the common area maintenance team responsibilities, and homeowner options. I move that we approve the common area maintenance policy transition plan.
Is there a second? All right. Second by Campbell. This motion is to approve a transition plan, and as I understand it, Matt, this is just making sure everybody understands what's going on here. Right now, you can contact the CAM team, the Common Area Maintenance Team, if you want work done over the wall and want to pay for it. That's been a policy that's been in place for some time, not forever, but for some time. This transition that you're talking about, I believe, is to allow that policy to continue until such time as the CAM team is comfortable having done the maintenance that we have set as their goal. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's the background on that motion. Is there any other discussion from the board? Okay, any discussion from homeowners? And again, I'll try to remind you to kind of hang on the motion if you're going to make a comment. That's kind of important. So if you have a comment about the motion or anything about that, please come up. I'm not trying to, but that's what we're trying to get on with here.
Hi, I may lose my voice. It's been going recently. Lynn Denning. I'm in Unit 47, Lot 9. And so if we're under the current contractor guidelines to have work done that we must pay for, is there an opportunity to revise them, please, to be able to address desert broom? Currently, it says that desert broom is only to be trimmed to 24 inches because it is considered a native and it is actually an invasive native. So we have no opportunity to do anything with it. It can't be touched with chemical. And right now, behind our wall on Winding Trail, it's actually growing up into the trees, which is a fire hazard. And I think I commented to you, Matt, about that.
Thanks for the question. I'm not capable of answering it. Ray or Matt, are you getting advice? Is that what you're doing?
I'm sorry, my voice is gone. I've been sick. So my comment is that desert broom right now is an invasive native. And so according to Anthony's guidelines.
So ma'am, you got to speak in the microphone.
Okay,
really,
I'm sorry.
I know your voice is weak.
It's an invasive native. And right now, it can only be trimmed to a height of 24 inches because it's considered a shrub. And so my question is, how do we handle Desert Broom if we're paying for contractors to come in at exorbitant rates? They cannot spray because that's prohibitive, and we can't trim it. And it's actually growing behind our wall up into trees and to mesquites, which is a fire hazard.
Okay, I think I got that. Matt, you got it?
I got it. I'll have to research. I don't have an answer for it.
Yeah, I think we're
I'm
going
just,
to have
all
to...
I'm asking is, I don't know how long we're still under these contractor guidelines that we're under now. And if it's a year out, or however long, then we have a significant problem. Desert Broom, as you know, is a problem actually all over the HOA.
All right, good comment. Thank you very much. We'll get back to you. We've got your lot, unit number, so we'll try to get an answer back to you on that question. I'm sorry, I'm not smarter about that. Anybody else have a comment from the board on that question? Okay. We have a motion on the board, on the floor, as Sean reminds me. Is there any other comments from the audience? Hearing none, all in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much. It's very clear, hopefully, that this transition is an important part of our common area maintenance plan. Okay, what's on the next is on the agenda is me. I plan to go through the board goals very quickly, but not too quickly, but I want to make sure everybody knows we've put a lot of effort into these goals. So let me just stand up and I'll act like I'm talking here. The board goals have been developed, and as I mentioned to you, have been already voted on because we wanted to get them in the hands of the committees as quickly as possible. But I want to go through these board goals with you to make sure you're aware of those. They'll be posted online. The first goal, Joey, if you're ready, the first goal is to complete the implementation of the TEI software. And unfortunately, you see my name there. Obviously, as we all know, this is not going well. Campbell did a really great job of an enthusiastic endorsement, but it really isn't going well. And the finance group is struggling, as are all the other operational groups as well. Walter and his team has a plan, and they're putting pressure on TEI at this point in time, as well as reviewing our contract and the legal obligations they and us both have. So I can tell you that there's going to be a lot of activity on this in the month of March. We've got to kind of get on with this program or come up with other alternatives. But right now, I hope you're patient. I really appreciate the patience. The staff this is a 1,000-pound gorilla on the back of the staff. They're all working incredible hours, and they're doing the very best they possibly can trying to implement this piece of software. So anyway, that's number one. So as you can imagine, that's a big deal goal for us. Next slide. All right, this is improve the HOA. It's kind of hard to read. Maybe you can. Hopefully you can. Improve HOA financial controls. Campbell owns this one. Credit card surcharge, he's already talked about that, is a sub-goal here. Develop and implement long-range replacement reserve fund plan. Again, that's on his plate. We need a bit of a long-term to make sure we're good with the reserve plan that we currently have and is appropriate and adequate. Develop and implement a centralized purchase order and invoice tracking system. That is a module that TEI has, and that was the intention that would have been implemented with TEI. But it's still, no matter what happens with the software side, that is a goal for this board and also the staff in 2023 that we implement a purchase order and invoice tracking system. bolster financial data analytics and reporting. There's a lot of pieces to that. Campbell is very interested in that. I think he'll bring a lot of great insight into a variety of areas, forecasting, variance reporting, and expenses. So that's the number 2 goal that we have. Next, Joey. We just talked about this. Okay, you guys are as up to speed on this as I am. Matt is in the middle of this. Common area level 4 and 5 maintenance plan. We're really into it now. We're in the implementation stage, as this suggests. So this is an important goal. It's been on our plate for some time. So continuing on and making this happen is 2023's important goal. Next. This is repurposing the Rincon room. The Rincon room, if any of you know, is right next to the Mesquite Grill. This is currently being used by the Pro Shop. It's a large facility. It had been used by the Fitness and Wellness Group for a variety of activities. The the MAC task force, a multi-use task force, which Sean headed and reported last year, suggested that we need to repurpose this Rincon room and get it back in the hands of the activity group and let them use it for all the great activities that they are currently offering our homeowners. So that is, again, Matt has responsibility for that, and he is actively involved in that right now. Next one. Turn my page. Okay, the next goal, and the last goal, the new goal for 2023 is develop and implement a food and beverage strategy to reduce yearly subsidies. This board is committed to having strategies in the operational side where we are currently subsidizing specifically a revenue generating activity. And golf, we've talked a lot about golf. We've involved in that process because we want to reduce our subsidies and we want to do it as quickly as we possibly can. The same is true, we believe, as a board, that we need to start thinking about a strategy for food and beverage that helps reduce our yearly subsidies. Right now, our yearly subsidies are somewhere in the range of $250,000 to $350,000, $100,000. And that's not necessarily okay, but probably there is an amount of subsidy that is just going to be a part of food and beverage for us to hold it as an amenity. We just need a strategy. So right now, Campbell and Chuck have that on their agenda. We have 2 things as carryovers. Joey, the next slide, that were not accomplished in 2022. The first one is update HOA2 club policies. We have roughly now 160 clubs, registered clubs within HOA2. And Mark is charged with making a consistent policy for those clubs, what they can expect, what the rules of the game are, if you will. This is a carryover from 2022. It's pretty extensive and lots of work. But Mark is telling us that he hopes to have something potentially for the March board meeting. If not then, for sure in April, for us to vote on and for you to see and be able to comment on. So that's ongoing. The last piece is a strategic plan. The board is committed to that. We were committed to that last year. Joe Ryman was responsible. He left the board because he moved out of town. It kind of didn't get much activity, so this board, 2023 board, is committed to a strategic plan for HOA2. It's a big deal. It really is a big deal. More later on the details, but we are currently actively involved, and Matt is actively involved in putting some parameters on how we go forward and develop a strategic plan, not only in the next 5 to 10 years, let's say, but also in the years beyond. So anyway, that's ongoing. Big deal, big undertaking. So Matt, thank you very much for that. Okay, that's the board goals for 2023. Let me sit back down here again. Thank you. And you'll be able to comment on that when we adjourn the meeting. So if you have comments, happy to hear them at that point in time. The last thing on the agenda. No, I will. I'm planning to, but I have one more thing. Thank you. Thank you. I have one more comment I want to make before we do adjourn. There's been a lot of conversation in the last month or even longer, I think. And there's been a lot of discussion about your ability by rule as a homeowner to park your vehicle in your driveway. I want to take a minute to read you a statement from the board that we have not talked about, but we have discussed, because we really want to kind of set the record straight on this. And that way, if you have comments, happy to have them, but at least they'll be a bit fact-based with regard to the rules that we all have associated to living in HOA 2. There have been some recent and incorrect postings on social media, which is typically where this stuff goes, about parking in your driveway. With over 400 residents using their driveways to park their cars and vehicles, the board feels that we should clarify this issue once and for all. The 400 was actual numbers found by patrol who drives every street every night. That's a real number. It probably changes each day by a few, but there's a lot of cars and driveways every day. There are 2 sections in our governing documents that define designated parking areas. The CC&R Article 4, Section 2, and this is dated 1994, so it's not something brand new, states the following: vehicles of all owners and residents of their employees, guests, and invitees are to be kept in garages, carports, and other parking areas designated or approved by declarant, which is Robeson, SDI, or the board. The second point is Rules and Regs, Article 5, Parking Section 5.01, and this was written in 1998 as the original Rules and Regs document that Robeson wrote when HOA 2 was started. Definitions: designated parking areas, paved driveways in front of private garages, parking lots, and streets in HOA 2. The driveway is an additional designated parking area. This was established in 1998 by Robeson or SDI in the first HOA 2 Rules and Regs, and has remained there since for the last 25 years. The board has no plans to change the present designated areas. To eliminate incorrect postings and misinformation, your board encourages all residents to review the governing documents that are online, and when questions arise, contact the appropriate HOA 2 organization for any needed clarifications. This hopefully will eliminate some confusion about this policy. So anyway, I wanted to read that to you. I want to make sure people that are listening hear it as well, obviously. But that's the rules as we know them relative to parking on your driveway. And there's no reason to believe this board is interested in making changes to that. It doesn't mean it can't, doesn't mean it might, some other board, some other day, but not as it stands today. I believe I correctly spoke for the board in that regard. Okay, having said all of that, thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. We're going to have a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Sean. Second? Any discussions? All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Thank you. Okay, the meeting is officially adjourned. We are now open for homeowner comments on any topic that you would like to discuss. There's a couple rules of the road. One, there'll be a timer on you for 2 minutes, so you have 2 minutes. We really appreciate if you keep to a singular topic. It makes it easier for us to think through. It doesn't mean we will answer everything you ask for. We may just say, hey, thanks for the comments. If it's easier or simple, we might try to give you a response on the spot. So anyway, that's the rules. Thank you all for being here. It's always good to see faces that are interested in the board and what the activities of the board are. So I'll take the first. If you have multiple questions, please just do one, and then we'll get back to you. Don't worry. And then I'll let everybody kind of come through, and you can come back with a second question. So, Ron, would you like to? Eileen, I'll get to you. I see you. Thank you.
Ron Betschke, Unit 42. First, I want to thank Dan for unofficially, but changing the rule that allows for resident comments as we go along. I think that's a wonderful thing, and we used it well today. My other comment is regarding food and beverage. Many years ago, we had a resident food and beverage committee, which, like all committees, was advisory, but it was composed of a number of people, residents, who had food and beverage experience professionally, not people like me who eat at restaurants. And so maybe we could reestablish a committee like that to draw upon the experience of residents who may help to some extent on the issue that you raised about subsidies.
To clarify that, was that a committee of the board?
Yes.
It was a board committee?
It was, and it was...
Approximately what year that was?
It's 20 years ago.
So?
And I think it got into trouble because, Robeson was still in charge, and they made recommendations that Robeson didn't necessarily like, and I don't know what they were, and none of those people are probably still here. So it's a new issue.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I know, I was not here at the time, obviously, but I do know that I'd heard that we have discussed the idea of possibly doing this, so I think it's certainly something that's on the table. As what I heard, one of the big problems was that the committee started dealing with menu issues, which is the one thing that should be off the table. So I think if we did do a committee, nothing associated with menus would be included, because obviously everyone's got an opinion about what the right food should be, and that turned out to be, I think that might be the reason that I'd heard why it was originally deleted, was because it became unproductive, because that's the only thing people were focusing on. But I think it's something the board can look at. If it's non-menu issues, it might be a good resource, so it's something we can consider. So.
Yeah, Ron, thank you. To what Mark suggested, I think it is something we should consider. So thank you for that comment. Eileen.
Thanks. In the past few years, shortly after an election, a board member resigned, creating an open spot on the board. About 2 years ago, the board appointed someone to the board without regard to the election results that had just taken place. As a result, there was a community outcry. The community wanted the board to look at the election results and choose a candidate that was familiar to the community, that had been vetted and that had been voted for. After that, a bylaw was created limiting the board's ability in that area. Last fall, another election occurred, and the same thing happened. A board member resigned, leaving an open spot on the board. And again, the community, I understand several people contacted the board and said, why not go back to the election results? And they were told, well, there's this bylaw in place. The problem is that the community is not necessarily given a voice in that situation. And my recommendation to the board is that a system be created where the community can have a voice. Should that happen again in the future, and likely it will, why not ask the community, do you want to have another election, or do you want to go back to the previous election results? It's time really to create a system where the problem can't occur without the community having some kind of input. This is not about me or my choice to not run for the board. I think I've told many of you that I was in a win-win situation with the last election. I love my life. I don't have a problem with the election, but I do have a problem when community voice is not able to be heard. There's a crucial nature in involving the community in decision-making. The current system is not working in this situation and in this regard, and I would ask that the board consider creating a system that, should this happen, there is some recourse. I also just want to mention that this in no way reflects on my thankfulness to Denise for being willing to be on the board, and I wish her the best of luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen. Thanks for those comments. Any other? Sorry, I didn't see you.
That's okay. My name's Dave Rutkowski. I live in HOA 1. I own a home on Boulder Ridge Drive. My reason to come to the board here?
Hang on. Yeah, I don't think we can take comments from HOA 1.
Okay, thank you.
You know, catch up with us after this, though, because I'm not trying to be, but it's kind of a rule. You got to live here. Yeah, it is a rule. So, but anyway, catch up with us after. Is there any other comments? Yes.
My name is Philip Doyle, Unit 27. Matt's going to be undergoing a reevaluation of club qualifications, et cetera. And I think we as homeowners need to think about what's actually in the CC&Rs, as Matt has pointed out, that there's some severe restrictions on who can be in clubs, namely non-residents are really not entitled to use our facilities generally. Generally, when non-residents use our restaurants with some constraints, they are to be charged a 20% surcharge. So these things are written into the CC&Rs already, and we as homeowners need to think about what we want to do with these issues that have largely been ignored. I understand we also have some people using our swimming facilities, paying a fee, et cetera, which is counter to what's in the CC&Rs also. So again, we as homeowners want to figure out, do we want to allow any non-residents to use our facilities? In fact, there are even some clubs that have a majority of non-residents in them. Is that appropriate? Well, it's for us to decide and to go back to the CC&Rs and see how strictly we want to enforce these CC&Rs. And it creates a little bit of an issue for some clubs, obviously, if more than half the members are non-residents. So that's one thing that the Fitness, Wellness, Recreation Committee, Matt, et cetera, and we as homeowners are going to have to think about and decide on over the next month or 2 or 3, however it plays out. Just to throw that out there.
Phil, thank you for those comments. I will say, first I want to thank you publicly. Phil gave me some great advice. He is so smart about parliamentarian stuff, and he's my hero when it comes to running an effective meeting. So thank you very much for reaching out to me.
It's my pleasure anytime. Anybody needs any help, just ask me.
But with regard to what you just said, Mark is developing a club policy, as we talked about in the goals that we have, and that issue of being a non-resident use of amenities here in Saddlebrook will be addressed. It is a very clear statement in our CC&Rs that non-residents are not allowed to use any of our amenities. It's very clear. HOA 1 who has a reciprocal use agreement can use any of our amenities and vice versa. But non-residents cannot. So that is coming up. As I said, probably March, maybe April latest, we will be reviewing that document and it will deal with that issue. Am I correct, Mark?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And you are correct to the statement that the CCNRs clearly do not allow it. It was written in the CCNR addendum in 2018 when the courses were handed over to us. So it is not something that we can decide as a community. It is a rule. It is a law that we are obligated as a board to follow. So, but but it's certainly part of the whole issue of rewriting the whole bylaws or the whole rules for the club. So it's something being worked on. And
Thank you,
yes.
Phil. Thanks for that comment. Good comment. Any other comments from, you know what? I'm thinking nobody wants to go outside. So, hey, thank you all for coming. Our next meeting, oh my Lord, I don't have the right date. Does anybody have the date in March? March? Yeah, I think I got it. Okay, March 25, 10 o'clock. Thank you. Okay, Sean said 22nd, 25. It's the 22nd, March 22nd. Thank you all.